giving birth is a daunting prospect at the best of times, but imagine being pregnant in the remote Highlands, where your next door neighbor is 10 miles away. It's an hour to the closest shop and the nearest hospital is an 8-hour drive. And that's before you've considered the possibility of being trapped in 4 feet of snow, or being stuck behind a herd of wild sheep. In these extremely rural locations, women's safety and the health of themselves and the baby is completely reliant on their community midwife, who will often be the same person for every antenatal check, the delivery and the postnatal care. It's a heck of a responsibility, says Ruth, who was born and bred in the small fishing town of Fraserburgh on the northeast coast of Scotland and has been a midwife for 15 years. I've no idea how many babies I've delivered. I wish I'd kept a note, but it's probably into the thousands. Sometimes the girls do get worried, both before and after the baby is born, because they are so isolated. Ruth faces all kinds of challenges that midwives in more urban locations could never possibly imagine. One of the biggest is finding the houses where these women live, whether it's for a home birth or a postnatal check. We spend a lot of time hunting for country roads that are tricky to get to, or getting lost in the middle of the night trying to find a place, says Ruth. Sat-navs never work out here, and you can be stood in a field going, where on earth is the house? Then you spot a building in the distance and think, okay, how do I get to it? Fraserburgh, where midwife Ruth has been based for 15 years. Image Getty. Then there are the extreme weather conditions. Postnatal visits in the winter, oh my goodness. Sometimes the snow is higher than the car down these country roads, says Ruth. I've been snowed in a lot when I go on visits. Once a lovely farmer had to come along with his tractor and pull me out. Sometimes we just can't get to the women at all, but most of these country girls have 4x4s, so the husbands will bring them out to us. They also have to contend with flooding. We had really bad flooding last winter and all the bus services stopped. I had a mum who couldn't get through it for a hospital appointment and an ambulance couldn't get out to her, so she just had to wait until the weather passed. It all worked out, thankfully. Local celebrity given the small population in the Highlands, Ruth, who has 3 children of her own, Luke, 11, Daniel, 7, and Holly, 6, with husband Philip, who works on an offshore oil rig, often knows the mums she looks after. I always tell the girls, don't worry, I won't remember what down there looks like, she laughs. I'm quite famous in Tesco. I know everybody, because so many women have had babies. My kids are at the same school as a lot of the children I've delivered, and I'll see them at the school gates and at swimming lessons. Living in such an isolated location, Ruth never imagined she'd end up doing her job on the telly, but she stars in the first episode of the new series of Fly on the Wall documentary The Highland Midwife this week. I'd watch Unborn every minute, but I never thought an opportunity like it would cross my path, she says. I was asked by my team leader if I would consider doing it. I said, give me a wee minute to think about it, but my family were pushing me into it, my cheerleaders. So I went for it. I decided it would be a great life experience. At first, Ruth wasn't sure she'd made the right decision. To begin with, it was very awkward, it didn't feel natural at all, she says, but she soon got used to having a camera crew with her on her appointments. While most of the expectant mums were understandably reluctant to have the horrors of labor filmed for millions to watch on national TV, one mum even started filming, then changed her mind. One woman, Carrie Ann, was happy to have the whole lot captured on camera. And it all turned very dramatic. She wanted a delivery in the pool at our local hospital, which is only okay for low-risk mums. She'd already started pushing, but there was no sign of the baby coming in. Her temperature and her blood pressure went up, so I made the decision to transfer her to the hospital in Aberdeen, which would take an hour by ambulance, says Ruth. The blue lights flashed as they sped away, but during the journey things changed. The baby had started delivering and there was no stopping it. I just shouted, "We need to stop." I have no idea where we were, says Ruth. They had to pull in by the roadside in the middle of nowhere, and luckily Carrie-Anne's husband, who had been following them in the car, pulled over and just about made it to see his daughter born. Ruth with Carrie-Anne and her baby. Image Channel 5. It was my first ambulance delivery ever. They don't happen a lot. I was calm though, the training kicked in. And Carrie-Anne was a superstar. She coped very well. It was all how it was meant to be, despite the unusual location. Ruth didn't actually notice the cameras during the ambulance ordeal. I thought, I've got a job to do and I need to forget they're there. And I did manage to forget during the delivery. The camera didn't put me off one bit. In fact, the camerawoman was brilliant. It was like having another friend. Ruth is nervous about seeing herself delivering a baby on the TV. I can't even watch a home movie of myself. But I'm really glad I did it and I'd like to do more, she says. And despite being at hundreds of Highland births, each one is every bit as special as the last. Every one is a miracle, every one is amazing. The Highland Midwife starts Wednesday 8 p.m, C5.